Hi guys, Level Up here. So I recently uploaded a resistance farming guide for how to get classified gear pretty easily, and I had a few questions back from people saying that they don't have a decent classified set in order to be able to farm resistance. So I wanted to upload a video today just to clarify the gear that you can do it with, and it doesn't need to be classified. First of all, ideally you're going to want to start off with a tactician's build. It doesn't need to be a perfect tactician's build. All you need to have is a weapon with talented. So I've got here 2 low-level LVOACs, and that's just because it's a fairly optimized tactician's build. But if you have any kind of level 256 assault rifle that has talented in the free slot, as long as you've got talented activated, that's the most important thing. So any assault rifle with talented in the free slot, and if you have a second assault rifle with maybe determined in the free slot, or destructive in the free slot, or predatory in the free slot, then it's going to be really easy for you to farm waves 1 to 4, because we're only going to use attack build in those waves. And in waves 1 to 4, the enemies aren't even elites yet, they're just standard red and veteran enemies. So they're really easy to take down. In terms of the gear, ideally you're going to want a Barrett's chest, because you're going to gain an extra 10% skill power the first time you pop a skill when you haven't got any other skills on cooldown. If you don't have Barrett's chest, again, don't worry, it's not that important. Like I say, it's only going to give you an extra 10% skill power. Because we're running such high skill power anyway, you probably don't need it if you haven't got it. It's a nice to have. More importantly is the backpack, which is inventive, because that gives you a much bigger skill power boost. And it only applies at full health, but because we're going to be in cover most of the time and our turret is going to be taking most of the aggro from the mobs, you're actually going to be at full health for most of the time anyway. So that 15% skill power boost is going to be active most of the time. Every bit of gear in this build is rolled electronics, so that's obviously what you're going to have to go for. And you're also going to have skill power wherever you can as well, to get a skill power up as high as possible. Anything around 400,000 is going to be plenty to be able to easily farm the first 4 waves. And to do that, we're going to have a number of electronics and skill power mods, as well as various skill haste mods as well. And you can either run seeker mine damage or turret damage, ideally for the performance mods. So on the chest, we've got 1 skill haste mod and 1 skill power mod. On the mask, you want a Tactician's Authority mask. We've got damage to elites and enemy armor damage. Again, this is just because this is an optimized build for running like legendaries and challenging and incursions. But because most of the enemies don't have armor and they're certainly not elites, you don't need to have this. So again, as long as you've got a good electronics rolled tactician's mask, that'll be perfectly fine. So you could either have skill power or enemy armor damage here on the major attribute. The mod, again, we've got an electronics and skill power mod. The knee pads, a Tactician's Authority, roll to electronics with skill power. That's all you need. You don't need damage to elites on the miner, don't worry about that. We've got a skill haste and a seeker mine damage mod. Most of the time I'm using the turret, so you'd actually be better off having turret damage if you have it. Again, this is just purely because it's my main tactician's build, and most of the time in the missions I use it on, I'm using seeker mines rather than the turret. But it doesn't really matter if you didn't have any seeker mine or turret damage mods. It won't matter because you've already got enough damage from the skill power. The gloves roll to electronics again. Skill haste really is what you need. Enemy armor damage is useful just for those veterans. It's going to apply a little bit more damage to those. It's not essential, but it's nice to have. And then also health on kill is a nice to have as well. It's not critical. If you've got something like assault rifle damage, then that would be great as well, because we are going to be using our weapon to build up stacks on the enemies and to take out the odd rusher as well. So assault rifle damage will be good as well here if you don't have health on kill, enemy armor damage or skill haste. And then on the holster, you just want obviously as high stats as you can across the board. Electronics being the most important one. Ironically, that is the lowest stat I have here, but it's high enough so it's not a major problem. And then obviously skill haste is the most important thing in a skill build, so you're going to want to run that on the major attributes. So that's the main tacticians build that we want to use from waves 1 to 4. 4-piece tacticians is going to give us that 4-piece bonus, which is every bullet that you hit on the enemies gives you an extra 1% bonus skill power. So as long as you hit the enemy for 30 bullets, then you're going to build up your 30% skill power buff, and that's going to take your skill power way over probably 450,000, which is the soft skill cap. Skills do scale beyond that, just at diminishing returns, so you just don't get much more for every extra percent of skill power that you go over that 450,000. It's also important to note that it says here every bullet your deployed skills hit enemies with adds 0.2% bonus skill power. So if you're not shooting the enemies with your weapon, but you've got your turret out and the turret is shooting, the turret will build up stacks as well, albeit just a little bit more slowly than you will with your weapon. And then as soon as you deploy that skill, that 30% bonus disappears, and then you have to build it back up again. But you'll see it's really, really easy to do that. And this is why it's not massively important if you don't have that higher skill power, because with the combination of the weapon talents like Talented that gives you 15% bonus and these 30% stacks, you're going to have more than enough skill power to do a huge amount of damage. So that's definitely what you want to run for the first 4 waves. It makes it so easy and so quick, and it makes wave 4, which is one of the waves that we're going to be farming. It's a timed wave, and we're going to be keeping ourselves away from the objective for as long as possible in order to kill as many mobs as we can. And this build is going to allow us to do that with without really any issues at all, and most of the time just hiding in cover and letting our skills do all the work, so it's really easy. So then moving on, beyond wave 4, we're going to switch to a defense build. So this one is the one I used in the previous video, which has got the house, it's got the 6-piece classified defense. You don't need to run that. This video I'm going to be showing you how to do it with just a normal defense build. I do have 4 classified pieces. This is just because I've destroyed everything that isn't classified, but it does show that you only need 3 pieces of defense gear, 1 piece nomad, a Barrett's chest and a ninja bike backpack. The classified pieces, all they're doing is giving us a few extra stats in the firearms department, so if you didn't have classified pieces, it doesn't matter. It's purely going to be just giving you a few extra stats. We're not getting any of the additional bonuses that the classified gear gives you. So let's start off with the Barrett's chest. I appreciate that some of you may not have one, and if you don't, again, it's not the end of the world. I'll explain at the end what you can use instead. But we're going to be using one that's got ideally health and enemy armor damage, because we want to be doing as much damage as we can. And then these were on sale last week. Firearms and damage to elites mods. Actually, this particular one is one I happened to pick up from a mob, which is slightly higher firearms roll. The ones on sale were 193 firearms, but if you've got those, then that's absolutely fine. So we're going to be using 1 firearms mod, and everything else is going to be a stamina mod, but we're always going to be having damage to elites as well. And the chest piece is going to be rolled to firearms as well. The most important thing is that we're going to be hitting that 6,000 stamina cap, which is going to give us, not a cap, but the threshold that's going to give us a nice tanky shield. The other thing that Barrett is going to give us is an extra 10% skill power before we deploy our shield. So one of the things about defense is that there is a a cap on the skill power. I've gone over this before in the other videos, but anything above 121,000 isn't going to give you much more, or isn't going to give you any more shield health. So what the Barrett's chest allows us to do is have a lower amount of skill power to begin with, and then that extra 10% is going to give us that extra boost that we need to hit that skill power cap. If I was to just hover over one of these, let's try and find one without any skill power on it. Let's try that one. I think that's it. So the base skill power we have is actually 113,000, but the Barrett's chest takes us up to 125, so that's really good. And what the other great thing about Barrett's is then once we've got our shield deployed, it doesn't count as being on cooldown. So the next time we activate our secondary skill, it's going to be activated with that extra skill power as well, and it's also going to give us an extra 5% damage while that skill is on cooldown. So it synergizes really well with the shield build Barrett's chest, so that's why we're going to be running with it. The combination of Nomad and Defense, it doesn't matter how you do it. I happen to have Nomad knee pads, but you can have Nomad anywhere else. As long as you've got 3 Defense and 1 Nomad on the mask, knees, gloves and holster, you'll be fine. The mask is firearms. We want damage to elites and enemy armor damage. And again, we're going to want to have stamina and damage to elites, ideally. If you don't have the stamina and damage to elites mods, you've just got the firearms ones, all it's going to mean is you're going to want to roll one of the pieces that I've got as firearms, have it rolled to stamina instead, and then you can just run with the firearms mods instead. And that'll give you a very similar stat distribution. It'll give you slightly more stamina and slightly less firearms, but it won't make much of a difference. The Nomad the Nomad knee pads, you're going to want skill power and damage to elites. They're the 2 critical ones. And the reason we're going to be running with Nomad is because the 2-piece bonus we've activated through the Ninja Bike backpack, as you can see here, is going to give us 15% health on kill. So because we're solo, we're going to be killing a lot of enemies, and every time we get a kill, we get that 15% health, and that's going to make a massive difference. And that's one of the main strengths of the build. It just allows us to be so sustainable with our health, and we're already pretty tanky with the shield anyway. So that's a really good thing. That's why we're running it. The mods, the performance mods, I'm running I think 1 or 2. We'll see in the backpack. It might be 2 damage mods, and I think 2 shield damage resilience mods as well. So yeah, let's have a look at the backpack. So the Ninja Bike is pretty critical to the build because it allows us to have the 2-piece bonus and the 4-piece bonus of the Nomad and the defense set active. Yeah, as you can see here, so the 2 mods I'm running here are ballistic shield damage resilience. That's just going to give us a bit more tankiness because we don't have the classified bonuses, the 5 and 6-piece bonuses active. So you want to roll skill power on the backpack and either firearms or stamina. Like I said, I'm running firearms because I'm using stamina mods, but if you have firearms mods, then roll it for stamina instead. The gloves, you're going to want to have SMG damage, crit chance and crit damage, and you're going to want to roll probably stamina here to hit the 6,000. And then the holster, we've got crit chance and as higher stats as we can across the board. It would help if you do have a classified holster, obviously just because you get 3 main stats, and they're going to be much higher than you get on a standard holster. So ideally, if you've either got a defense or a Nomad holster, this is the piece you're going to want to have there. So that's the build. If you don't have a Nomad backpack, then I would suggest you have you run with 4-piece defense and 2-piece Nomad for that all important health on kill, because that's the most important part of the build. all the ninja bike is doing is allowing us to also run with the Barrett's chest. So the Barrett's chest is going to give us that extra skill power. So if you don't have ninja bike, it's going to mean you're going to need to run one extra electronics mod, or possibly two, in order to hit that 121,000 skill power cap. And also we're going to lose out on the extra 5% damage when our skill is on cooldown, but not the end of the world. The most important thing is going to be having the 4-piece bonus of the D3 and the 2-piece bonus of the Nomad active. Everything else is the same as the other build, apart from the weapon, because obviously the house, a lot of people are still looking for that. So I wanted to run with something else, something fairly standard that anyone can get a hold of. This is a Navy MP5. Blueprints were available quite recently for that, so if you have the blueprints, do try and craft some, because you probably get yourself a decent one. As you can see, this isn't the best. This is 275 gear score, but we've got Hurried, Predatory and Destructive on the weapon as the talents. Hurried I was going to roll off for Responsive, but it's actually a really good talent to have on a shield build, because obviously we're getting a lot of critical hits, and normally the reload speed on when you've got a D3 build out is very slow, so Hurried just allows us to have a really fast reload of 1 second. And sometimes that's actually more beneficial than having a little bit extra damage. So it's up to you. I just thought I'd run it just to see how it was, and it worked really well. So I highly recommend it. Otherwise, obviously, Responsive is fantastic. It's an extra 10% multiplicative damage when you're within 10 meters of the enemy, which we are most of the time with our shield. Predatory is a must. Just having that constant trickle heal is really important. And Destructive is probably the best PvE talent, purely because we're getting 15% armor destruction, extra damage on armor, and the NPCs armor takes up most of their health pool, so you're getting 15% extra damage across most of their health pool. So that's definitely a talent you're going to want to have. And then, as always, on the shield builds SMG, you want to have an extended magazine with crit chance and rate of fire.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
And you want to have, thanks Alexa, and you're going to want to have crit damage, headshot damage and crit chance on the optics and the muzzle. And then I always go for optimal range, normally on the grip. But we're gonna I just thought I'd try out crit damage instead with optimal range in the minor. It's up to you, you don't have to. Either's fine. Optimal range gives you obviously a lot better range, and we're using an SMG, so the optimal range is quite low already. So it's normally better to run optimal range, but I just thought I'd try out crit damage this time around. But that's it. That's the only differences from the previous video. As you can see, the stats are really actually quite similar. The firepower is a little bit lower, but as you can see in the footage, we're still being able to melt through the NPCs. But that's it really. That's the main differences from the previous build. I'll leave the footage running, and you can see how it works with this build over a full classified. And as you can tell, it's still more than good enough to farm resistance up to wave 10, and that's kind of what we're aiming to do. So happy hunting, guys. Hope RNG gives you all the classified pieces you need, and I will see you all in the next video.
You've got 3 hostiles left. You've got 1 enemy remaining. You ready to start scanning the objective?
20 seconds until next wave. Next next wave in 10 seconds. Scan the indicated location. Left to complete the critical objective. You have 30 seconds left to complete the critical objective. You have 10 seconds to complete the critical objective.
Scans indicate 5 hostiles remain. You've got 3 hostiles to go.
Let's get this done.
Scans indicate 1 hostile left. Get ready. You're gonna have to deal with a contamination anomaly.
Hostiles inbound in 20 seconds. Hostiles inbound in 10 seconds. Virus bursts are inbound.
I'm seeing 5 enemies left. Scans say you have 3 enemies left. Scans say you got 1 hostile left.
Next wave of hostiles in 20 seconds. Ten seconds until next wave. Heavily armored enemy inbound.
Support is now available.
remaining. Scanning indicates 3 enemies remain. I'm seeing one more hostile. Uh-oh. Shade Tech is gonna go offline.
20 seconds until next wave. Next wave in 10 seconds.